I just want to be clear before you watch this video, this is purely going to be my commentary on certain events that have taken place with the build up to The Last of Us Part 2. I'm not going to use any clips from The Last of Us because the powers that be are actually attacking people, they're attacking YouTubers for literally posting singular clips or pictures or footage, any footage from The Last of Us, even from trailers that Naughty Dog have released themselves. So I'm not going to post anything, I'm not even going to post pictures from The Last of Us 2. I will post other things, references for what I'm talking about. With regards to The Last of Us Part 2, I can't post anything because they're striking down everyone and getting their channels shut down, and it's effectively taken away freedom of speech. It's honestly a shame, and it's pretty disgusting since YouTube is a way of life for a lot of people and people should have the right to their own opinions. They shouldn't be censored, and if people don't want to like something, they don't have to. They're even copyright striking memes about The Last of Us Part 2, and it's actually getting out of hand, so I'm not going to post anything with that. But anyways guys, let's get into it. Considering how many good memories I have of Naughty Dog games, it's a little bit of a sad state of affairs to see how things have gone, how the mighty has fallen. I remember way back when I was a kid and I'd go to school and there was always the Xbox guys and there was the PlayStation guys, which I was a part of, and we'd flame each other, we'd take the piss, it'd be a mess around. It would always be their console versus our console. It was good fun. I remember no matter what they'd say, I'd always say, yeah, but we've got Naughty Dog. And I remember the look on their faces because they knew we had the big dog. We had the heavy artillery. When I was growing up, Naughty Dog could literally, and they literally couldn't do any wrong. Some of you may not even remember this, but one of my uncles used to own the 3DO, and the 3DO came out somewhere in the mid-90s, so I was super young. I didn't even really know what it was. I think at the time I assumed it was a Nintendo or a PlayStation, but I remember going over to his house and I played this game called Way of the Warrior, and it was one of Naughty Dog's really early games. And yeah, it's a bit of a crappy game, but I loved it, and at the time I thought it was really good. From Crash Bandicoot to Jak and Daxter to Uncharted, all the way to the first Last of Us game, Naughty Dog could literally do no wrong. They could literally do no wrong, and I guess that has all changed now. I swear, if the Xbox guys in secondary school could see me right now, they'd be laughing. Let's just forget about the leaks for 1 second, and like I said before in my other videos, I'm not going to cover the leaks directly. We're just going to focus on Naughty Dog as a company and the things that have happened recently. Now, before I go into key figures that I want to discuss in this video, I want to address one issue that has been commented on by several current and former employees of Naughty Dog, and that is the crunch. And the crunch basically refers to overtime in the gaming industry. It's when you're working in very stressful or very fast-paced environments to meet fast approaching deadlines. A lot of employees have given their own accounts of the situation from Naughty Dog, speaking anonymously to Kotaku while still working for the company, and some people that have left the company have given their own testimonials as well. Now, Naughty Dog is a studio that strives for perfection, and so it will only hire individuals that are willing to go the extra mile or 50 to make sure every single aspect is of the highest quality for their games. And whilst that's amazing for the gamers, you have to wonder how this affects the developers, their personal lives, their health, their mental health. And I'm not attacking Naughty Dog for that. I appreciate, The Last of Us and Uncharted are fantastic games, and it is because they put so much detail into it. And this isn't exclusive to Naughty Dog in the gaming industry. It happens throughout the whole industry. We've heard of this problem with NRS when Mortal Kombat was coming out, but we're talking about it now because obviously this is a Naughty Dog problem as well, and this video is focused around The Last of Us and Naughty Dog. But that aside, Naughty Dog have actually been a part of some shady illegal practices, such as one that took place with a guy called Jonathan Cooper, where he cited that Naughty Dog threatened to not pay him his final paycheck unless he signed some paperwork to not reveal their production practices. To me, that's a bit of a messy situation, but it's hard to point to one individual that would have put that on Jonathan Cooper. It's very easy to point things at someone. I've seen a lot of people pointing to Neil Druckmann for that thing in particular. I don't have any sort of concrete information on that. I've also seen them point to Neil Druckmann for bullying employees into working overtime and getting the job done at any cost. Basically, it doesn't matter what it is, that they have to get the job done. I've also heard stories about him bullying people with regards to not sharing his views, but again, I don't actually have anything concrete on that. But with regards to keeping Jonathan Cooper's money from him, that's something that he has said himself, and I can't imagine why he would lie about something like that. Now, with all that being said, this all really started back on Uncharted 4. That's as far as it goes back for me. This is when I started noticing things. I never spoke about it back then. One, because I never had a YouTube channel, didn't have a platform to speak about it, and two, a lot of things just kind of went over my head, and it's not until you piece everything together that you start to really see that there is something going on. But if you guys have any knowledge of shady practices or agendas within Naughty Dog before Uncharted 4, feel free to add any information into the comment section below. I'll obviously read it, and if it's big enough, I'll speak about it. Now, originally during Uncharted 4's development, Amy Hennig was in charge until she left under like very mysterious circumstances. And several anonymous sources claim that Amy was actually forced out of the company by Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley. And we're going to get into Neil a little bit later on. We're not going to focus on Bruce. I don't actually have much to say about him. I might have missed some stuff. This video is going to focus on this Neil guy quite a bit. So Naughty Dog would later come out and deny that she was ever forced out, but given Naughty Dog's recent behavior with employees and everything that's come out about them, I don't know if I believe that either. So if we were to assume that Amy was forced out of the company, can someone explain to me why? Because it's very, very, very important to note that Amy had previously worked on games like the Legacy of Kain series, Jak and Daxter 3, and Uncharted 1 to 3, including Uncharted Golden Abyss. Now to me, that's a pretty stellar resume, so it's a bit weird to push her out of the company, especially when Amy has been sort of heralded as someone that is really good at writing stories. But let's just assume that she got up and left midway through development of her own accord. Okay, we'll assume that. In comes Neil Druckmann, this guy. Now to be fair to Neil has a pretty stellar record himself, as he's also worked on Jak and Daxter and the Uncharted games, and obviously the first Last of Us, which we all love. So sounds like a perfect replacement for Amy, right? Well, this is where the problems really begin for a lot of people. You see, Neil is an avid fan and supporter of Anita Sarkeesian. Now for those of you that don't know who Anita Sarkeesian is, I would suggest watching my previous videos, and if you do know who Anita Sarkeesian is, you know why it's such a big issue. Now before you go and watch my other videos, I would suggest grabbing some holy water, because this chick just talks the most unreal amount of nonsense. I'm sure that Neil is aware, but Anita is a proven liar. She's a proven gaslighter. She constantly pushes false narratives to invoke a reaction from people and garner more support from her own fan base. I don't want to make this video about Anita Sarkeesian again. We know why she is problematic. We know why she is an extremist, why she's referred to as a feminazi. We know all those things. The problem that I and many other gamers have with Neil is that he cites Anita's work to make out as if he is down some sort of righteous path. Now take a look at this video where he's given a keynote back in 2013 citing feminist frequencies, tropes versus women.
And the first project we started kind of, moving forward on was called Mankind. And the idea is very similar to what you've seen in The Last of Us, that the cordyceps has jumped from insects to people. And the people it infects, it can kind of create monsters or kill them. But the twist, the thing that was different about this idea was that it only infected women. And you found the one girl that it didn't infect, and that was Ellie. And you kind of protected her and tried to like bring her to this lab where they were kind of finding a cure. And there were a lot of things that we were really excited about this idea, but ultimately it failed. And the reason it failed is because it was a misogynistic idea. What are the things that she's going to be kind of really attracted to and attached to as she grows up? And as a game creator, I look around at kind of what we are making and what are going to be her role models from the stories, and I don't like what I see. More specifically, I'm talking about our female characters. And whether we want to admit it or not, these are role models. And yet we sexualize, we objectify, we marginalize, and we reduce these female characters to a lot less than they can be. And this is coming from a guy that almost made a really misogynistic game. So I kind of know what I'm talking about. So once this thing failed and I had this awakening, almost exactly at the same time, this Kickstarter happened about the tropes versus women in video games. And while you might argue with the way it delivers its message or whether every point is exact, you can't argue with just the pattern that you see in the industry. So I was really intrigued by this. The videos for the video games hadn't come out yet, but I watched the rest of Anita's videos, and I realized it's not just a problem in games, it's actually throughout entertainment.
A Reddit user called Entire Vacation 7000 said, Druckmann has been convinced by far-left and feminist activists to change his artistic output so that it spreads the right message according to social constructivist theory, a theory that requires the promulgation of shame and is spread by activist critics who believe that the media has a responsibility in the education of young girls and that said media will lead to outcomes that are beneficial. Entire Vacation 7000 goes on to say, now I've laid out their logic and motive, look at this complex complex theory and all the places it can go wrong. There is no proof that art affects people in this direct way. There is no proof that the changes they make will be beneficial. There is no moral justification for abstaining artistic vision in order to improve the consumer's life. There's no proof that any of this will liberate young women from their current role in society. There is no proof that young women want this change. I don't know if I'm getting this wrong or backwards, but how does attractive women in video games marginalize young girls? Does that mean super buff dudes with 8 abs and giant biceps also marginalizes men? When did big boobs become such a massive issue? Should we redesign the entire Mishima family from Tekken because they're super jacked up, or should we have Kenshiro from the Fist of the North Star lose 90 pounds of muscle? I find this line of thinking very odd. Before I dive into The Last of Us, it's important to note that when Neil Druckmann came in to take over the development of Uncharted 4, the original script and over 8 months of character voice work were basically thrown out and given an overhaul. Fair is fair though. I personally enjoyed Uncharted 4. I still play it, as you guys can see from my videos, but I'd be lying if I said that I found it a little odd when Nadine was literally like a freight train out of the blue, and she basically went untouched in the story. There's literal scenes in the game where you're playing through them and you're destined to lose. There's no fighting back against her. She literally dashed Drake through a window. It was like watching Rey Mysterio and his son trying to fight Brock Lesnar. Drake and Sam are 2 grown men fighting Nadine and they look incredibly helpless. Now usually I would go whatever, the girls in the UFC could probably do that to Drake and Sam, but when you know that Neil is an advocate for Anita's work, it almost feels like there's an agenda behind it. I know that might feel like a reach, but that is just my general feeling behind it given who Anita is and the fact that Neil supports her views on video games. It's also important to bring up the fact that if you remove Nadine from Uncharted 4, the story literally wouldn't have changed. You basically can't fight back against her, and when you examine the story and realize she played no real part other than to beat the crap out of Jake, well, it starts to raise some eyebrows. Neil Druckmann also fired a games tester because they spoke out about how absurd Nadine was in Uncharted 4, and like her or not, she was pretty absurd. Now people have the right to their opinions, no? I'm not sure why you would fire someone just because they don't like how a fight scene plays out, and I'm not entirely sure it makes you sexist for not liking it either, but you guys know how it goes these days. You fall in line if you want that paycheck. It's also important to note that Drake was actually supposed to have a son, but it was later changed by Neil Druckmann. I have no real issues with Drake having a daughter, that's not the issue here, but when it's changed and Neil Druckmann is at the helm, it feels like there's an agenda behind it, and it does feel like that. With all that being said, I still think Uncharted 4 is a fantastic game. I'm not knocking the game, well, not really knocking it. I still enjoy it, I still play it, but you know, as they say, where there's smoke there's usually fire. This issue continued into Uncharted Lost Legacy, where you see Chloe and Nadine as the main characters of the game. Again, I bought this game, I love the game, I still own it, I still play it, but during my playtime with Lost Legacy, it never really crossed my mind that Nadine and Chloe would be getting together, and the game didn't actually ever touch on it. But as time went on, the company started sending out images on Twitter making out as if there was some romantic connection between Nadine and Chloe, and again, this was never touched on in the story at all. One image that surfaced on Twitter was of Chloe and Nadine under the mistletoe. Now we all know what a mistletoe is. They're both looking at the floor, they're both looking very shy, it looks like they want to kiss. Then members of Naughty Dog would start to refer to Chloe and Nadine as Claudine, which is basically how you refer to a couple on the internet, and more artwork would just start to surface, even of them getting married at one point. Now the reason this became an issue for a lot of people is because Chloe and Nadine already had an established characteristics, like they already had established relationships within the Uncharted games. And yes, whilst you can argue that they were bisexual all along, it doesn't really make sense. If they were, then why wasn't this explored in the game at all? It wasn't even hinted at. A lot of people believe that Naughty Dog is so hell-bent on pushing gay acceptance that they will compromise the integrity of their characters by changing around their personalities and preferences to fit their own woke agenda. Now am I or these other people that made this observation against gay people? Well, I can't speak for them. Probably not. I'm definitely not. Am I against gay characters? No. Why would I be? I'm against the rewriting of established characters to fit an agenda. I've already spoken about Thor. I've spoken about a black Superman. You know, we've spoken about these things before. Now, as I said before, I am part black. It doesn't make me against black people. I don't like it when established characters get rewritten to fit an agenda. And that is what all those things are. Now, can characters develop and become something else through good storytelling? Of course, that's fine. But there was no storytelling here. It was just thrown in after the game was already out. The game was out. There was no storytelling here at all. I don't like this change because it's virtue signaling. That's where it is. Write a story that makes sense. Don't virtue signal. It's stupid. Now, funnily enough, other than some stupid articles written by papers like The Guardian, I don't have much to say about The Last of Us Part 1. It's a pretty stellar telling of a man and a child and their fight through a decaying America. It's a brilliant game. It's going to go down in the Hall of Fame. I absolutely love it, and I know most of you do, and I know that's why everyone is so mad about The Last of Us Part 2. Now, there's quite a few YouTubers going around and defending the game and basically telling people that if you don't like the game, then you're either homophobic or transphobic, which I find really weird, since The Last of Us Part 1, as well as the DLC, featured gay characters and nobody really said anything because no one cared. No one cares that they're gay or trans. No one, literally. And if they do, those people already have like negative emotions towards those kinds of characters. They don't represent the gaming community as a whole. Of course, you can go online and you can find a small minority of people that are going to hate on trans and gay people. Those are closed-minded individuals, and that would just be anecdotal evidence. It doesn't really justify anything that these YouTubers are saying when they're saying that people that speak out against The Last of Us 2 are homophobic or transphobic, and it just makes it very easy to poke holes in your argument. That's not why people dislike The Last of Us Part 2, and as I said before, I'm not going to spoiler The Last of Us Part 2 at all, so you guys can remain in the dark about certain things. It's not about the character's sexuality, and it's not about someone being gay or being trans. It's simply that this story sucks. The story sucks. Everyone that knows about the spoilers has squinted super hard when hearing how the story plays out, and again, it just feels like there's an agenda behind it when you know who's steering the ship. It's not to say that developers we have loved in the past haven't come out with bad games or bad stories. Those things happen. It just happens. It happens with TV, it happens with movies, it happens with anime, but usually when it happens, we just put it down to the writers missing the mark. When Bleach came out, it was super popular and it went downhill, and it wasn't because there was a socially woke, misinformed she-devil spewing nonsense into someone's ear to make it do so. It was simply because the writer wrote a bad story and people got tired of it. When there's an agenda tied to something, it really amplifies the issue. Like, it really makes it so that people are going to hate on it because people don't want agendas in their game. Now, is there a possibility that myself and the rest of the internet are jumping the gun because we haven't played The Last of Us 2? Yeah, okay. I can accept that. There's a possibility, but given the extent of these leaks, it's pretty hard to get behind it, and it's hard for me to see how this game is going to be salvaged. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt because I want to speak about it on my channel with all the knowledge, not just of the leaks. Now, I completely understand why people are not going to buy it, and if you don't want to buy it, you're well within your right. And if I'm in the wrong, then I'm in the wrong, and I'll admit that. I'll 100% admit that. I'm not one of those people that's going to hate on something for the sake of hating it just because everyone else is hating on it. And if the game turns out to be something I enjoy, and to be completely transparent, the gameplay is probably going to be something that I love. But if I end up enjoying the entire experience, then so be it. But the chances of that happening are very, very, very thin right now. Yesterday, PlayStation released a trailer for The Last of Us 2, and funnily enough, there is no mention or no sign of one particular character that is the one drumming up a lot of controversy right now. To make matters worse, the PlayStation and PlayStation Europe channel have disabled the comment section and the like and dislike buttons. I know it might be because they're worried people post spoilers in the comment section, but the spoilers are already out there. Silencing people won't do you any good. Now, personally, I'd be okay with the comment section being disabled because of spoilers. It makes sense. But why did you disable the like and dislike buttons? You're only adding fuel to the fire. The bitter taste left in people's mouths is only gonna get worse. And Neil has also posted a video basically telling people that they won't know how good it is until they play it. That's fine. It's his game. He wants to defend it. I'm cool with that. What's not okay is he's disabled the comment section again. Once again, benefit of the doubt. They don't want to get spoilers. They don't want spoilers to get out there. And in his defense and Naughty Dog's defense, they left the like and dislike buttons active. And as of this recording, last time I checked, it was at 28,000 likes and 85,000 dislikes, which kind of tells you where the fandom is right now. And there's all sorts of damage control shit going on right now. Like, I don't know what Naughty Dog's PR team is doing, but it just seems like one of the more backwards things, one backwards thing after another. Let people air their frustrations. It's already out there. Once it's on the internet, it ain't going nowhere. It's too late. Everyone knows what's up. In terms of attention to detail in the gameplay, the audio, the general level design, I have no doubt that The Last of Us Part 2 is probably going to be the best. It's probably going to knock it out of the park. But The Last of Us Part 2 doesn't have the luxury that a game like Street Fighter does, where if the gameplay is good, then that's all that matters. If the story sucks, no one cares. It's a fighting game, you know? If the gameplay is good, that is what matters. The Last of Us is a series that is heavily story driven, and it's a story that people are heavily invested in. If the story sucks, then the game is going to be heavily criticized, and it could drag the entire game down regardless of the gameplay. If the story was amazing but the gameplay sucked, it would be the exact same thing. Only with gameplay sucking, that's just, you know, know, the team messing up generally. There's no agenda behind that. So yeah, the story not being good is gonna crush this game. And when I play this game, I'm expecting an amazing gameplay experience, but as it stands right now, I'm not expecting an amazing story. I'm thinking that I'm gonna go in there to watch a socially woke agenda piece play out, and once again, I'm happy to be proven wrong. I want to be proven wrong. Nobody wants The Last of Us to fail for the sake of it, but people are gonna speak with their wallets this time. I do believe that. I don't think you should be pushing your political or social ideologies onto a game so heavily, and you should expect pushback when you do that. Naughty Dog have also come out, and Sony have come out, saying that it wasn't a disgruntled employee that leaked the information, but it was a hacker, someone from the fandom. I don't know. I don't know if I believe that personally. Obviously, there's no concrete facts, but given Naughty Dog's practices, employee statements, and the fact that it was dev kits that were leaked, I don't know if I believe them. It just seems like a lot of insane damage control is going on right now. Just to add fuel to the fire, does anyone remember that really awkward PSX panel back in 2017? The one where an actual gaming journalist or someone that understands the industry and plays the game was snubbed, and instead Naughty Dog decided to select a lesbian blogger who didn't know anything about video games. This woman clearly doesn't know anything about video games. She doesn't know anything. The panel was awkward to watch. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It's the PSX panel back in 2017 for The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I can't put my finger on why they decided to select this woman to be the host of this. She doesn't know anything about video games. So what other reason was there to hire her? Because she is a popular lesbian blogger. Again, you're pushing your social politics on us. People tune in to watch these sort of things to become informed on the game and the company. Is there anything wrong with hiring a lesbian to do the job? Obviously not. But she has to know what she's talking about, and she shouldn't be hired simply because she's a popular lesbian. During the panel, the interviewer admitted that she had only started playing games a year prior, and The Last of Us Part 1 was her first game. So first of all, we don't actually even know if she'd played anything since then. And judging from the things she was saying or not saying, it's pretty safe to assume that she didn't actually know much about anything. At the same time, we were introduced to one of the game's first male characters, which was called Lev, I believe, who's played by a transgender teen who actually openly told people that they were handpicked by Neil to play the character instead of auditioning for the role like everyone else. I mean, that's what happens. That's how things usually go. You audition for a role, you get the role. Being trans shouldn't be an automatic ticket to getting a job, but to be fair, it's Neil's game. It's his project. He can do whatever he wants. But then if you do a little bit of digging on this person that Neil hand selected, and it begins to raise some serious eyebrows. Their tweets are just like, what is going on here? Now, I've said before that there's some serious hate towards white men just by default, and these tweets sort of paint that picture. Also, think back to E3 when they were showing the game. When they were first showing the game off, what was one of the cutscenes that they kept on showing over and over again for an extended period of time? Ellie kissing her girlfriend. Now, what did it have to do with the gameplay? No context was given at all, literally none, just two girls kissing. Now, if this was an isolated incident, then it's whatever, right? But how many times are they going to force something on you before you're just like, what are we actually doing here? How much clearer does it have to be that there's an agenda here? To me, it's just odd. I've never disliked gay people. I've never disliked trans people. I never disliked any of them to begin with. I don't know what they're trying to force on gamers. I never thought it was wrong for them to be who they want to be. They're human just like us. But can you stop and focus on telling me a story? Give me a story. Give me some context. Of course, if you point things out like this, you're homophobic. You're met with extremely hostile tweets, and quite honestly, I can't understand where this mentality comes from. As if people can't have opinions, as if people can't critique things. As if me being more attached to Joel's character and wanting to play as him more makes me a hater, makes me a misogynist. It's so backwards and ridiculous. Like, this kind of approach puts everyone in the same boat. They put people like me and some dangerous homophobe in the same boat. As if we're all dangerous homophobes or transphobes with prehistoric viewpoints that shouldn't be heard. Saying stuff like our kind is really gonna win people over, and it really makes you look like the kind of person with common sense. Don't you think it's funny that there's been loads of relationships in Naughty Dog's games, but never did their relationships or kissing scenes or whatever get so much focus? We cared about the gameplay and the story and how it's advancing the story. Naughty Dog has changed largely over the past 10 years, and I think their ideas on diversity and inclusiveness are a bit silly, and it's a bit too ridiculous for me. I don't feel more connected to a character because they're straight. I don't feel more connected to a character because they have the same skin color as me, that they're a light-skinned mixed-raced individual. I feel more connected to a character because of what makes them who they are and the struggles or lack thereof that they go through. The decisions they make as a human being is what gets me attached to the character. It can be male or female. My favorite character in Brooklyn Nine-Nine is Captain Raymond Holt, a gay black officer. I didn't connect with him because he's black, and obviously I'm not gay, so there's no connection there. I wasn't deterred by the fact that he was gay, but I enjoy the character, the man that Raymond Holt is. Him being gay doesn't change that, nor does it deter me, and I don't think it deters anyone. One of my favorite characters in Naruto is Hinata, for completely unrelated reasons to Raymond Holt. She's written in a way where you want to root for her to become stronger and overcome her father dismissing her as a weakling. And she also kind of reminds me of my girlfriend, so there's maybe a little bit of bias there. The point being though, that their genders, their sexualities, the color of their skin made no real difference here. It didn't make me feel more attached to them or detached. A good writer will find a way to make you connect with a character that doesn't share your sexual preferences, or a character that doesn't come from the same background as you. That's what good writing is. Inserting the fact that someone's black isn't gonna make me automatically like them. There's loads of black people I don't like, just like there's loads of white people I don't like. Gay people can be bad too, just like trans people can. They can be good. Gay people can be good. Black people can be good. White people can be good. Their skin color and their gender isn't gonna change that. That's not how you make people connect with them. There's loads of people that don't get represented in games, and it's probably because that kind of character might not appeal to a mass market, or the writers just haven't found an intelligent way to include them in a game or a story. It's not because people don't want them there. The vast majority of people that play games are intelligent, inclusive people. The vocal minority does not paint the whole industry, and all jokes aside, nobody sides with people that make fun of gay, black, trans, or female characters or anyone else. Gaming's for everyone, it's always been that way. But agendas in gaming shouldn't be there. We don't want them there. Games should be about amazing stories and gameplay. That's what it should be. That should be the focus. A game can tell an amazing story about a trans character. A game can tell an amazing story about a female lead. We've played the Walking Dead games. Have you ever heard someone complain about Clementine? No. People will support it. It doesn't matter what gender or race they are. People won't support you shoving shit down their throats, and that is what The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be reminded of. This is going to be a powerful reminder to the developer to not get their heads so far in the clouds that they lose touch with reality, or how to make engaging and well thought out characters. As I said before, we could all be wrong and the game ends up being brilliant on all fronts, but given what was leaked, I highly doubt that.